From an overlooked scene in the novel to a more watered-down version of it in the TV adaptation, here are the most outrageous Bridgerton scenes that made fans angry. As Shonda Rhimes' first project with Netflix, Bridgerton has the potential to be a luxurious, scandal-filled romp through Regency London. The first season leaves us with more questions than answers, but there are plenty of dark and scary moments, as is typical of a Shondaland production. The most pressing of these is the writers being aware of how poorly they handled a particular scene, and this has left the fans furious. Bridgerton is based on a series of novels written by romance author Julia Quinn and Chris Van Dusen. The veterans adapted it fairly faithfully for the show's first season. However, there is a pivotal scene in the book that has been criticized by romance readers for years as depicting a The show altered this particular scene on purpose to make it less obviously non-consensual. This is in light of the general public's increased awareness of what constitutes consenting sex in the 2 decades since the book's publication. That tells us that Van Dusen and the other creatives were aware of the issues with the original scene before they even made the show. Even with the changes made, the show's final cut of this sequence still remains non-consensual. Despite being presented as a grave breach of trust between consenting persons, the show makes no mention of the fact that this was, in fact, a worrisome breach of consent. Thematically, Bridgerton is interested in the complexities of informed consent, so it's odd that this scene is ignored. We also don't see any long-term effects on the victim or their relationship with The scene was so brief, and the story goes on so fast from the details of the sexual encounter itself. However, fans who are particular about the issue of strongly feel the need to address the matter. The Regency period of London, the 19th century of tumultuous ballrooms and high society intrigues, is the backdrop for the historical romance, Bridgerton. The protagonist of the story is the beautiful Daphne Bridgerton, who fakes a courtship for the purpose of her debut on London's Marriage Mart, which is a series of high society events where eligible women and men can meet each other. Daphne, who hails from a prominent family, made quite an impression at her debut, but she is having difficulties attracting suitors. And after thinking to herself that a fake courtship with a very suitable duke will reawaken the interest of other gentlemen, she decides to stage one. Simon, the dashing Duke of Hastings, an African-American whose family was recently promoted to the peerage, was her preferred suitor. Unfortunately, he is avoiding marriage proposals since he has vowed never to have children, ending his family's dynasty and his claim to the throne in the process. It's a vow he made to get back at his emotionally abusive late father, who put the dukedom ahead of everything else in his life. The hoax of the relationship is a win-win for both Daphne and Simon, since it keeps him from becoming too involved in the dating scene. However, despite their constant bickering and charade of being in love, a genuine romance eventually blossoms between the two pretenders. The plot forces Daphne and Simon to get married quickly after a series of unfortunate circumstances, including an epic misunderstanding, secret love trysts, and a duel. As you could expect from such a sizzling pair, there are also numerous sexual encounters. However, the fact that Simon has sworn never to father children presents a fresh set of challenges for the couple, which Daphne is unaware of. The relationship between scandal, secrets, and informed consent is explored, and this subplot contributes to that theme, which is Bridgerton's strongest thematic point, albeit one it eventually wastes. Simon's decision to keep his pledge to never have children a secret from Daphne drives the plot. Instead, he informs her that he can't have children, which is different from saying that he won't. Now, Daphne is a sexually uneducated woman, so she is already at a disadvantage. However, because she is learning so much about sexuality from him, she has no idea that he is withholding information about his own sexual well-being and habits. Simon is dishonest, but he doesn't mean to be, as he doesn't set out to trick Daphne into getting married. But when circumstances force them to, he gives in and fabricates an excuse for his infertility rather than tell Daphne the truth. In the story, Daphne's realization of the disparity between can't and won't fills her with terror and bitterness. It's an intriguing twist, since Bridgerton portrays Simon's misleading language and his decision to keep lying to her by omission as intentional. Daphne was lied to, up to the point where she was unable to make an educated decision about their sexual encounters or their relationship as a whole. Unfortunately, she learns this the hard way by him. After Daphne gets married to Simon, she has no idea what she's doing sexually. Since her mother feels too awkward to tell her any specifics, she goes into her marital bed unprepared. In the meantime, Simon continues to have passionate sex with Daphne, but continues to use the age-old method of contraception known as pulling out instead of telling his new wife the truth. Daphne eventually realizes that Simon's assertion that he is unable to have children is linked to the fact that he has never inside her. She then decides to take charge during one of their sexual encounters in an effort to discover whether he can have children or not. She does the unthinkable when she decides to lie on top of Simon to prevent him from pulling out. Right before they both have an orgasm, Simon looks scared and attempts to stop, pleading with Daphne to wait twice, but it's too late. After she accomplishes her objective, she pauses and Simon is left with a huge look of disbelief in his eyes. The reason why many fans are upset is that the show's creators refuse to view the incident as a scenario. The episode centers around Daphne feeling betrayed and angry with Simon for lying to her. She even gives a semantic speech about the difference between won't and can't. Its purpose is to explain the nuances of informed consent. However, Simon's dishonesty does not justify the approach Daphne employs to obtain his reproductive fluid. A single instance of inadequate, ignorant consent does not excuse a lifetime of unwanted sexual encounters. Refusing Simon the chance to provide consent for engaging in sexual relations and embracing fatherhood remains a form of sexual assault. It would have been interesting for the show to explore the possibility that Simon's lie led to another similar violation of consent, and for the two of them to learn to communicate more openly, carefully, and sensitively as a result. Unfortunately, the show doesn't linger on the consequences of Daphne's decisions or how they might affect her in the future. Also, Simon's trust in Daphne seemed to have been unaffected by what happened, which is quite strange, considering the fact that she coerced him into trying to get her pregnant. What's more annoying is that the show's focus shifts to Daphne's mistrust of Simon, all thanks to his lies. Worse still, Simon even had to plead for Daphne's forgiveness. At this point, the whole plot of Simon not wanting to have children is totally forgotten. Of course, the writers of the show penned it that way. And for the fact that they tried to toy with the audience's intelligence by maneuvering attention away from a clear-cut only annoys the fans even more. It's important to remember that the novel also features a much less consensual version of this incident. It is also important to remember that the writers know this, which is why they tried to water down the TV adaptation. But is and they would do well to call it what it is.